Learn more, visit primarypromise.org.
It doesn't matter if your only neighbors are wildlife or just wild in general.
I would propose that amendment.
If you work from home or work is technically at home, every homeowner can save money by getting a ThermWise home energy plan from Enbridge Gas. Discover ways to make your home more energy efficient and apply for rebates if you purchase any energy efficient appliances. Schedule a home energy plan from Enbridge Gas at thermwise.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's an easy drive on the Valley freeways, but we do have a new crash. This is in Utah County, eastbound SR 92 at the mouth of American Fork Canyon. If you're headed Timpanogos Highway up to the higher elevations, keep an eye out for crews arriving on the scene there. Whipple Service Champions, your cooling, heating, plumbing, drains, and electrical specialist. Whipple that away. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Highs will be in the upper 30s and lower 40s over the next couple days with a mix of clouds and sun now through Friday. Then on Saturday, we'll see colder weather move in and a high of 31. Right now, it's cloudy and 36 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
It's probably the biggest story of the day. Facing tough questions from Democrats and praise from Republicans, President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had a long hearing today during his Senate confirmation hearing. Welcome to Inside Sources. I'm your host, Erin Ryder. I'm a local attorney and most recently the Republican nominee for Salt Lake County Mayor. Here with my friend Adam Gardner, who is the owner of ASG Consulting, a local lobbying firm here in Salt Lake. Hi, Adam.
Hey, it's good to be here. This is an exciting day talking about Pete Hegseth. Yeah. I've been waiting for this for months.
Well, this week is the week where we start a lot of these confirmation hearings, and this was certainly one that a lot of people were watching for and looking forward to. So let's talk about it. We're going to start with some sound clips of what we heard in the hearing, and then we're going to give our comments on it. So first, let's start with what Pete Hegseth said himself.
It is time to give someone with dust on his boots the helm. A change agent, someone with no vested interest in certain companies or specific programs or approved narratives.
Okay, and then obviously Democrats and Republicans felt very differently on this issue, so let's take a couple of sound clips to hear the dynamics between the two. First, we're going to start with Senator Tammy Duckworth, a Democrat from Illinois, quizzing Pete Hegseth on some of the things that he would need to know if confirmed.
What is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. There are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other than serving in the military. So my job has been to
no. The answer is no. Can you name one of the three main ones that the Secretary of Defense
signs? You're talking about defense arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't remember to mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations.
The ironic thing is when she's talking about this and she starts quizzing him on all these, different parts of the Indo-Pacific and who's a member of this pact and what she does not. It's very clear she does not actually want answers to these questions.
Not at all.
She's not trying to find out his general philosophy, his management style. Hey, you have talked about how you want to go after the industrial complex, the military-industrial complex. How do you propose to do that? Give me some sort of step-by-step. How are you going to get this under control? And instead, she's asking these the most obscure questions she can find. Now, granted, he should know about that she's asking about status of force agreements and things like that. And so it wasn't he wasn't great on his end, but also she wants him to fail. So because you can't name who's in the ASEAN Pact, which by the way, it sounds like she also looked it up right before the committee hearing to make sure that she could nail him. I just don't think it's very disingenuous. But then again, we got to remember these things are for show. They're for theater. She's from Illinois. Her constituents don't want Hegseth. They didn't want Trump. And so it makes you kind of see where the Democrats are going with this. We're going to ask him a ton of really obscure questions, and then we're going to nail him.
And make him look as incompetent as
Make
possible.
him look just ridiculous. Now, on the flip side, Republicans have just been really defending him and rolling out the red carpet and calling most of the Senate hypocrites.
Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why.
So, all right. Let me ask you this, Adam. You and I have both spent some time in D.C. We both have seen the hearing process and some of the things that go on behind the scenes. What do you take away from this? We knew that this was going to be a contentious hearing walking into it. You've already talked a little bit about the show that's involved in some of these congressional Senate hearings. Do you think that what happened today, the discussions that are happening here, are going to change anyone's mind? Do you think the decision is already made on the part of these senators?
That's
Where do you
a good
think
question.
this is going?
I think mostly these conversations where people really want to know like serious policy issues and then also explain the senator's policy position to Pete Hegseth, to the nominees, that happens usually behind closed doors. It happens in individual meetings with these senators. So I know Pete Hegseth, like, for example, there was a Politico article that came out today on John Curtis. He has met with Pete Hegseth, and he says, I'm feeling more comfortable with Pete. I'm getting to know like some of the issues that have popped up in the media. I've got to ask him directly about those. A lot of these things are going to be coming up in the committee hearings, and they're going to be kind of ridiculous. But there's been a lot of policy, too. We're not playing those policy clips on the radio, and most people aren't, because a lot of these things are pretty boring, and we're talking about the NDAA and certain intelligence briefings, and are you going to be ready for? But being ready for war against Taiwan and China, that's going to be a big issue in the next administration. How are you equipped to handle that? How are you going to prepare your troops? Have you ever led an organization that has more than 50 people in it? And the answer for Pete Hegseth is no. So it's been really interesting to watch these hearings where he's had to take virtually no experience in management and look. When Democrats go after him, you've never led an international whatever. Well, you're not going to unless you're the Secretary of Defense, and you only get that job. you're only qualified for that job once you have it.
Yeah.
But 50 people is just not a lot of people to be over.
Yeah. I think and there were no resolutions today. They didn't actually,
We got a long way to go.
We have a long way to go, right? We're not done with this. And we're just getting started on Trump's nominees in general. So really, we're not done with this. But, if I had to ask you in half a second, Adam, where do you think this is going?
So I think he's going to pass, but I think he's only going to pass by about one vote. And J.D. Vance, in my opinion, and I don't know, we're all speculating here, but I think J.D. Vance actually could be the tiebreaker on something like this. It might be that close.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely be talking more about that once we get some votes on the floor. Next up on Inside Sources, some major developments in the push for a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. More on that coming up next.
The newest part of your morning, and still so familiar.
When you wake up and listen to a radio show, it's like you're a part of a family. You're listening in on people you know, and it's magnificent that Andy Farnsworth is sitting in the chair because he's someone we know.
Utah's Morning News. Andy Farnsworth joins Amanda Dixon to bring you important news in the car. 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and over the years, you've heard me praise the Connecticut soft water systems. You've heard that so often, you might be tempted to chuck a shoe at your radio. Well, hang on, because I've got some great news. Get this, Connecticut will pay you $50. I'm not kidding on this. They'll pay you $50 to buy a competing water softener from another dealer. Ready for the rules, though? Well, they're pretty simple. Invite Connecticut of Utah to your home for a free estimate on a Connecticut water softener. If within 60 days of hearing them out, you buy any other system from any other water softener dealer, Connecticut of Utah will fork over $50. That's how sure they are that after hearing them out, you won't settle for anything less than a Connecticut water softener. Now, this offer does expire in 30 days, so don't delay. Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com. That's softwaterutah.com. Tell them Doug sent you.
Start the new year with J&J Garden Center's Plantastic Sales Event and experience a beautiful garden inside your home right now. This Monday through Saturday, shop the stock greenhouses at J&J Garden Center and enjoy 20% off all indoor plants, pots, and black gold all-purpose potting mix. Houseplants add to the beauty of your home, and they can also boost your mood, reduce stress, and purify indoor air. It's true. Plants make people happy. Shop the J&J Garden Center greenhouses for classic favorites and rare finds. The expert J&J Garden Center team will help you pick the perfect plant for any light condition and area of your home. J&J Garden Center open year-round with special winter hours Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Start the new year with J&J Garden Center's Plantastic Sales Event. Take Layton Parkway exit to Main Street and head west on Gentile Street in Layton. J&J Garden Center.
If you've ever experienced running out of hot water before your shower was done, or hard water spots on dishes and fixtures, I've got a deal you might be interested in. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you probably already know that a tankless water heater and a water softener solve both issues. If you've ever thought about looking into getting a tankless water heater, here's the deal I was talking about. Through the end of February, we're including a free water softener with every new tankless water heater we install. The best part of this deal might be that you never have to worry about being the last one to the shower again, or that you don't have to waste the money keeping 40 to 50 gallons of water hot 24/7. To take advantage of this deal, call Any Hour Services before the end of February. The visit's free and there's no obligation to buy. If you decide to have us install a new tankless water heater, we'll throw in the water softener for free. That's right, a free water softener when you purchase a tankless water heater. Pick up the phone and call Any Hour Services right now for all the details. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Mornings can start feeling the same. Wake up, brush teeth, go to work. But with breakfast from Wendy's, it's like, wake up, brush teeth, Baconate with a breakfast Baconator. Roll with the sausage breakfast burrito. Buddy it up with a honey buddy. Or get seasoned with seasoned potatoes. And then go to work. Sorry. When you're ready for a fresh wake-up call, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? It seems impossible to find them. Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go. ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared.
Prevent your child's next asthma attack. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
It appears that Israeli and Hamas officials are close to agreeing on a ceasefire in Gaza. We're still actually waiting for things to become official, but several actual officials have said that Hamas has accepted a draft agreement. And we've been talking about this the last year. We've been, is there any type of agreement where the hostages can get released? I'm actually not that confident that that the majority of the hostages that we think are alive are actually alive. Hamas has just been brutally torturing and killing these hostages. And even when in the last couple of weeks, when Israeli forces went into certain parts of Gaza, they found multiple bodies of hostages, were able to identify them. And it's just a horrible situation over there. But it looks like that that Hamas leaders and Israeli leaders are heading over to Doha in Qatar to actually work out the basis of the agreement, which I think is kind of funny that they go to Qatar to do these agreements, and usually you go outside to a neutral party. But Hamas officials live in Qatar. They have received billions of dollars in international aid. They keep it all for themselves and for Hamas. So the Hamas leaders are worth billions of dollars, and they live in palaces in Qatar. And now they're going on their turf to make these agreements. But it's kind of been a long time coming, and the fact that Israel and Gaza and Hamas are able to get some sort of draft down on paper, I think is really important. Let's hear with an update from ABC News a little bit more on the situation.
A Qatari foreign ministry spokesman saying a deal is closer than ever, writing in a statement, "We have reached the final stages of the agreement," and that we expect the agreement to be announced soon, though it's still unclear when that will happen. The Qataris have been key mediators in these negotiations, which are ongoing in Doha. The implementation of the deal is expected to happen next week after President-elect Trump's inauguration. Inez de la Cuetara, ABC News, at the Foreign Desk.
So I think, what's interesting about this, Adam, you're talking about how a lot of this is happening on Hamas turf. I do want to take a second to just say, it took me a minute to figure out what is the agreement, what is it that we're talking about here, and there's a lot to discuss, but I want to just clarify there are really kind of three phases to this that we are seeing. The first is the release of these hostages. Now, again, Israel is assuming that most of these hostages are still alive. So how does that change things if they're not? Does it change anything?
Well, look, I think that's a great question, because I think Israel is giving up way more than Hamas is. They want these hostages back. And as you're going to talk about here in the different phases, they are willing to do a lot, even just to recover the bodies of these hostages. Like, they want to know where they are, even if they are dead or alive. I mean, think of this. This is the government of Hamas. Well, I don't understand how anyone has any empathy for this group. I know that might be controversial to some folks listening, but these guys kidnapped little children and are starving them and beating them and holding them and raping them, and it's unforgivable. And the fact that Israel is willing to set aside and try and get these bodies or these hostages back, they're giving up a lot to do that. So, will it change if they're all dead? Yeah, it would look like they're not in compliance with the agreement, maybe. But also they're willing to do whatever they can to get these hostages back.
Yeah, and to your point here, so we've got 33 hostages. The release would take place over a 6-week period and would include women, children, older adults, and wounded civilians. Also among these 33 are 5 female Israeli soldiers. And this exchange happens in exchange for 50 Palestinian prisoners, including 30 militants who are serving life sentences. So, yeah,
Oof,
I mean,
that's
33
crazy.
civilians in exchange for 50 militants, basically.
And these are people, and I've watched some of the videos of their Palestinians will call them political prisoners in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've watched some of the videos of it is women and young men who are just walking through the streets of Israel, and some of them will actually just pull out knives or any other sort of weapon, and then just start attacking soldiers who are just standing around. And these are the types of people who are sitting in prison for life sentences. So that's a big deal. So you're exchanging 50 militant combatants, terrorists, in exchange for 33 civilians.
Yeah. So the second phase of this is supposed to be that Hamas would release the remaining living captives, mainly male soldiers, in exchange for more prisoners, and goes back to our point here, the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. How do you think that impacts things in that area if we have Israeli forces completely withdrawing from Gaza?
You know what? I see it maybe as a good thing if we can get all the hostages home. Their argument, Israel's argument, has been we are going into Gaza, one, to hunt down and kill a lot of the people that did this, but also to get the hostages back. And once you have the hostages back and you've kind of decimated all of Gaza, maybe you don't need to stay around. And I think if you're releasing all of these militants back into Gaza who are going to be coming back into Israel and attacking Israeli civilians, I think it's important to note that Israel, in my own opinion, that Israel is just banking on, once we get the hostages back, we know that the Palestinians are going to go back on their word because that's what they do. And so if they do, that's okay. We'll be able to start this whole process over again, and we can start up military operations if they break it.
So almost just not expecting this again, in your viewpoint here, it's almost entirely just about Israel getting these hostages back with an expectation that this conflict isn't really over.
You know what? It sounds like it. And I don't see this conflict being over. I get that there's a complete withdrawal. I think that's great. Netanyahu has vowed in the past to resume fighting until Hamas's military and governing capabilities are eliminated. I don't know if that's where they are yet. I mean, when you see the pictures of Gaza, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's pretty leveled. They've killed all of their main leaders. They've completely wiped out with, I was going to call it Beepergate, but I don't think that does it justice, with Hezbollah. They've completely decimated Hezbollah, and they're going after the Houthis in the south in Lebanon, and already against Iran. Like they're kind of doing the work here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We'll see how this plays out.
Well, so the third piece of this that kind of goes along with that, in the third phase, the bodies of any remaining hostages would be returned in exchange for a 3 to 5 year reconstruction plan for Gaza. And that plan would have to take place under international supervision. So we've got Gaza totally decimated here. Israel wants not only the hostages, they also want the bodies back of any remaining hostages. And then it's about, all right, let's rebuild.
Is that crazy to you? It seems like Israel is giving up so much, and Hamas is essentially, in this phase, in phase 3, they're giving up nothing. They've already killed these people. They have murdered them. Mm-hmm. It's just their bodies.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're Israel and you don't think that Gaza will hold to, or that Hamas will hold to any sort of agreement that make, why not get your hostages back? Why not get the people
Sure,
back?
We'll give you the moon.
Right, yeah,
we'll
take
give you
what
whatever
you can
want.
get while you're also preparing for what you expect the next phase to be.
No, that's a good point, because they don't actually think that they may go ahead with it. What I think is interesting, this was kind of led out by the United States. They've been negotiating kind of with Israel and Hamas, and it's interesting that it's taking place right around Trump's inauguration. His rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric, I think has been really good for Israel in, one, backing them up, but two, saying, you know what? Even if all of these Hamas leaders are going into Qatar, we'll go right into Qatar. What do we care?
Yeah.
And I think it had the Qatari government being like, Hamas, get out of this. Like, you guys better figure it out because we're not taking the brunt, taking the heat for what you guys are doing. It's also made the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, they have come out and said, we do not want Hamas in our section of town. We don't want you guys leading out. And so I think that this is going to be a good thing. I'm excited we're going to see some of these hostages back. We pray for their safe return. When Inside Sources returns, On the Hill 2025, our live coverage previewing the upcoming legislative general session continues. We're going to be talking about some election-related bills after the break.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top story this morning. The teacher from Eagle Mountain who is facing more than 24 felony charges accused of sexually abusing 2 students in his classroom and in his car has allegedly left the country. Utah County Sheriff's Office says Ricardo Prinz is now in Brazil and they are trying to get an arrest warrant. The documents don't specify where Prinz teaches, but online records list him as working at Rockwell Charter School in Eagle Mountain. The school has not confirmed his employment. An NHL player won't be facing the Utah Hockey Club tonight after being hit by a car yesterday, and we've just learned the person who hit the player is allegedly a Salt Lake City employee.
Salt Lake City police say when they initially responded to the accident in the downtown area around 3 p.m. yesterday, they couldn't find the pedestrian involved or the person who reported the accident. Montreal Canadiens team officials later told police it was forward Emil Heineman who was hit by a car. The team says Heineman will be out for 3 to 4 weeks with an upper body injury. Utah Highway Patrol is investigating the incident. The first game Heineman is missing, tonight's matchup with the Utah Hockey Club. Virl Johansson, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story from ABC News, former First Lady Michelle Obama will not attend President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday. Her office confirmed to ABC News. Michelle Obama's office didn't give a reason for not attending. She will also notably absent from former President Jimmy Carter's funeral last week, where she would have been assigned to sit next to President-elect Trump. Taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow is now up by only 90 points, a big loss from earlier in the day where it was up by a couple hundred points. It sits at 42,388. S&P 500 down by 12. The NASDAQ dropping 120 points. Some slightly warmer days ahead. We'll check the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Our military faces a crisis. Recruitment down. Morale weak. Our leaders more focused on going woke than killing terrorists and defending America. President Trump nominated Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense to change things. Hegseth isn't an insider or a swamp dweller. He's a decorated veteran of the United States Army who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's exactly who we need leading the Department of Defense. Hegseth will ban woke nonsense from our armed forces, strengthen our military, and make our soldiers proud to serve. Call your United States Senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them stand with Trump. Confirm Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Again, call your senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth and make our military great again. Paid for by American Leadership PAC.
Take advantage of Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric's $99 or it's free mainline drain clearing special. That's right, $99 or it's free. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
At the Utah Auto Expo, we have a vehicle for almost everything. Four-wheeling, snowblowing, vacationing, boat hauling, and adventure seeking. Heck, we have a whole section for adventure seekers called Adventure Utah. The Auto Expo has a vast selection of vehicles from different manufacturers all in one place. It's a great place to comparative shop. We have a vehicle for almost everything, and we certainly have a vehicle for your thing. The Utah Auto Expo, Mountain America Expo Center, January 17th through the 20th. Plenty of free parking for your current car. Go to AutoExpoUtah.com for tickets.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. What's happening, Ricky?
Pretty quiet on the Valley freeways. We do have Salt Lake City PD wrapping up 2 crashes, one at 5th West, 1300 South, another at 100 South, 2400 West. Teens can get up to $200 with a Teen Learn and Earn account, plus continue earning rewards as they master the essentials of finance. More at cypresscu.com/teen. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Taking a look at the forecast for the Wasatch Front, we are going to see a few warmer days, but not warmer by much, just a couple of degrees, up to 43 by Friday. But then a chance of showers coming back in on Friday, 10% chance, up to 40% by Saturday. 36 degrees. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
As part of our coverage of the upcoming legislative general session, we are going to be previewing bills that will be discussed on Utah's Capitol Hill. We've already discussed some, but today and tomorrow we're going to focus in on a few election-related bills. Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm Erin Ryder here with Adam Gardner. So first up, we're going to chat with Democratic State Representative Jennifer Daly Provo about one of her bills, House Bill 170, Initiatives and Referenda Amendments. Representative Daly Provo, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just start first with the elephant in the room. Love a little bit of background on this, but is this bill a result of the language drama that came with Amendment D?
You know, it's actually not. It predated everything that we went through with Amendment D, but I think that it dovetails well into the narrative and sort of the lack of everybody coming together on transparency, throughout the last couple of years, and I think is a good and elegant solution to some strife and heartburn that has come about as a result of that process.
Okay, I got to know this. First of all, just like on a personal level, for listeners, there's a lot of representatives and senators up on the Hill, 104 of them. Both parties, both chambers, and there's a saying that goes back a long way, where brand new Democratic senator gets into the U.S. the U.S. House of Representatives, and goes to his colleague that's been there for a while, and he goes, "Okay, show me the Republicans. Where's the enemy?" And they said that the Republicans aren't the enemy; they're the opposition. The Senate is the enemy, and. And I reflect a lot about that up on the Hill because working with you, Representative, you are great to work with. You are a consensus builder, and you bring a lot of stakeholders together through your process, something that I really appreciate. In fact, we were just in a meeting last week, and there was like 40 people in the meeting of different stakeholders and different opinions. And I think that's just awesome to get everybody's feedback. And so something like this, is this going to be a bill where you're like, I have my idea, and really if my idea in whole doesn't go through, then it's not worth doing? Or is there where are you going to have to negotiate on this type of bill?
Well, Adam, first of all, thank you very much for the kind words. It really does make the process better for everybody, if we can build consensus and come together on some shared goals. And the thing that I like about this bill, and, for anybody who's listening, the idea is that when there is an initiative or a referenda run, right now the current, state statute says that in order to sign an initiative or a referendum, you have to read the entirety of the proposed language. And if anybody's looked at a bill, an initiative or a referenda is essentially a bill. They can be dozens or hundreds of pages, and it's all in, language that's hard to read and can be very hard to understand for people. And so what this bill does is it just asks the Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel at the legislature, which is a neutral, nonpartisan body, to draft a summary that is easy to understand, that accurately reflects what the initiative or referendum is trying to accomplish. And I think that offers some transparency and gives people, when they sign those, when they put their name on a legal document, and that's what you're doing when you sign one of these, and attesting that you understand what it is, that you can be more truthful in your confidence in being able to say that. So this actually was part of a process last session where in interim of 2024, I worked with interim government operations on two versions of a bill, and this was included in one of the versions, and then the other version was the one that passed, and so there was one provision that was in both bills, and then this was an additional provision. The original bill was just to make sure that our election law was in line with some areas of the Americans with Disabilities Act where the statute was falling short. And that bill did remedy that provision, and that passed legislative session last year. Interim government ops opted to not address this piece, this transparency piece, because it was a different issue, and I do appreciate that. And that's why we're bringing it back this year. Of course, Amendment D has happened since then. And so I'm just trying to build consensus around this idea that it just provides the ability for people to really come to the table and understand the issues so that we all can be on the same page when we're voting on whether or not we support any issue that comes via the ballot initiative process.
I really like what you said here, how it's a signature on it's a kind of a legally binding document.
Signing a legal document.
And that's when you sign that, and when multiple people sign it, when you get the required amount of signatures, you are creating a law. And I like what you're talking about. I had an experience 10 years ago where and I was on the ballot at that time, and I'm listening as my doorbell rings and my wife goes to the door, and there's someone gathering signatures for this initiative, and I think it was for Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
And the person at the door said, "Hey, we're just gathering signatures to make sure that kids can have health care. Do you support kids having health?" And I just ran out of out of the back room and was like, "No, that's not what this does." So I got really animated, and my wife was like, "Whoa, okay, I'm not gonna sign anything." And so what you're talking about here seems to solve a lot of that problem. If Legislative Research and General Counsel can write some sort of summary that even I can understand, I think that solves a lot of problems. Are you getting any pushback on this?
I have not had anybody reach out and specifically push back on it. I know that there is a lot of wariness and skepticism when it comes to ballot initiatives and referendums because it has been such a flashpoint for so many people. But I really think that, like you said, whether you support what's on a ballot initiative or a referenda or not, taking away that ability for people to kind of misconstrue or to just say, or to just talk about one small piece that instead of what the whole thing does is really, really important because, I was I'm in full transparency. I was very supportive of the ballot initiative for Medicaid expansion. I collected signatures. I've worked really, really hard on this issue as a matter of public health for a long time. But I also would have been really insulted if somebody came to my door and said, this is to get health care for kids, because that's not what it did. And, you just, again, that goes back to that legally binding document. You are saying that you understand what is that is what the law says. When you sign that, you are attesting that you understand what's in it. And if it is 200 pages long, and nobody collecting signatures is going to wait for you to read and understand 200 pages of legalese, then we're just doing a disservice to people who are trying to decide whether or not they support a law.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what it does.
Well, this is going to be this is one of the bills that's going to come up in the legislative session that starts next week. So we're going to be
Correct.
watching anxiously to see how this goes and to see, kind of what happens here. So thank you so much for joining us today, Representative. We're really grateful to have you on and look forward to continuing the conversation down the road.
So grateful to be here. Thank you to you both. Have a wonderful day.
You too. All right, so let's do a little follow-up to a bill from last year's legislative session. Next on Inside Sources, we're going to be talking about road rage. Lawmakers are sharing their thoughts about it, and I think we're going to have some fun conversations. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Julie. Come chill with us in Logan where we do winter right. Okay, this is super cool, and I mean that literally. Bring your binoculars and bundle up. Take a horse-drawn sleigh ride through a herd of 600 elk at Hardware Ranch. Get up close to these majestic animals on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We're also home to Beaver Mountain and Cherry Peak ski resorts where you can ski, snowboard, or go tubing on a 500-foot hill. The best part is they have a magic carpet that drags your carcass to the top of the hill so you don't even have to. Need more adrenaline? Rent snowmobiles at Beaver Creek Lodge to explore the beautiful mountains, miles of powder, and groomed trails too. For more frosty fun, try indoor ice skating. It doesn't matter how coordinated you are or aren't. This totally cracks me up. You can rent skates and helmets and even a walker. Perfect! Or just cozy up to the fireplace at a historic bed and breakfast or comfortable hotel. Enjoy live concerts and theater performances and delicious dining options. More info at explorelogan.com/winter. That's explorelogan.com/winter. Logan, we're cool like that.
More than 50 million Americans suffer from a form of mental illness, and Utah isn't immune.
With nearly 1 in 3 people dealing with anxiety, depression, or some other form of mental illness.
But there's hope. We can all take action to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. KSL has teamed with 988 Utah, the free suicide and crisis lifeline, to bring you hope and help you thrive.
If you or a loved one is experiencing a mental health crisis, call or text 988.
Because a healthy mind matters.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-838-6161. That's 800-838-6161. 800-838-6161.
Febreze. So my home is also my office, and before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Is your financial advisor offering you up to a 30% upfront bonus? Are they promising you up to 10% growth per year guaranteed for your retirement income? If not, you need a new financial advisor. I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. If you plan to retire within the next 10 years, don't wait only to find out it's too late. I've seen hard-working folks like you retire only to be required to go back to work, all because their advisor told them guarantees like these were too good to be true. They're not. That's up to $30,000 up front or up to $10,000 per year on $100,000, all guaranteed for retirement income. don't work when you're supposed to be retired. And if any financial advisor tells you it's too good to be true, they simply don't have the options we do. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Things are just better with a partner or a friend. And when it comes to losing weight, Soda Weight Loss makes it easier than ever to let go of the weight for good.
I'd been wanting to lose weight, and I tried on my own. I'd been seeing things for soda, and so we talked to the nutritionist and loved every bit of it. You know, I couldn't be happier, honestly, with the result.
Join with a partner and only pay for one. Imagine achieving all your weight loss goals together with your partner, and you only pay for one.
I've let go 50 pounds, and I don't have the cravings that I used to have.
I would definitely recommend soda. It's because it works. I even recommended it to my daughter, and she's on her journey now.
Just go and look at the almost 9,000 Google reviews about soda weight loss. Lose the weight without injections, without medications, without hunger. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Utah lawmakers say the frequency of road rage in the state has surprised them, and it comes 6 months after a road rage law went into effect, focusing on education and enhanced charges for people involved in road rage incidents. So we're going to find out, is the law actually working? So the bill last year was HB 30, Road Rage Amendments. And first of all, when you see a lot of bills coming through, like there's going to be 1,500 bills written this session, and you're going through them, and they say like water reduction amendments and local sales option tax amendments, and they get kind of dry, kind of boring, even though we have to read them all and follow them all. When you see road rage amendments, you're like, whoa, all right, finally, like let's talk about this. What is it? It prioritized education as a way to decrease road rage in Utah, and it also enhances some charges. So if you're committing a Class B misdemeanor, it's going to raise this up if you're involved in a road rage incident. But that doesn't seem to stop road rage incidents, and we just kind of want to find out like why. Why is that the case? And the more I think about it, the more I read up on like the death penalty, life in prison. Like these are the most horrible things that could happen to you as a person, like getting sentenced to death or sentenced to life. It just completely ends your existence on this planet Earth, and it doesn't stop crime. Like we still have murders, we still have. So road rage is not going to end. But is there something that we can do or that government can do to actually fix this problem?
Well, let me, couple thoughts on that. That's a very meta question from you, Adam. Thanks for tossing that out there.
Yeah, you're welcome. Solve that. We have 6 minutes.
Solve road rage. A couple things that I thought were interesting were that lawmakers were surprised at how many road rage incidents there are, which is, I mean, we all know that road rage is a thing, but I guess the number is surprising. Also that Senator Todd Weiler, who's the floor sponsor, said he's been surprised by the number of people who've called him primarily to defend their loved ones and to argue about the intent and to, with the increased penalties, just be like, no, they didn't mean it. They didn't mean it. No. And he's been surprised at how many people have done that. So,
which I kind of get, Aaron. Look, I'm just trying to think, if you are in a situation where you get cut off and you throw your hands up in the air and you honk, and then that person retaliates again by slamming on their brakes. It's this escalating situation, and I think when you get to a certain point where you two are at war with each other on the road, it's extremely dangerous. It's extremely horrible. I feel like all of the education that you had about the issue or the enhanced penalties that may be coming later, that is never entering into your head. Yeah. So you're pulling over to the side of the road, and is this horrible case in Lehigh where this guy dies in front of his kids after they get in a fight. They were kind of both guilty, of having this fight and each of them having road rage and cutting each other off. So you have this like huge issue where I get what they're saying, like that they didn't mean it. It wasn't their fault. Like
they're a good person.
You're a good person who gets put in a certain spot. That's why I think the education is so important, because when I was a kid and your teachers, your church leaders, your family are teaching you how to stay away from drugs or alcohol or whatever, they're telling you, make the decision now of how you're going to react in these situations later. Because by the time the situation is happening, it's too late for you to prepare.
Well, yes, I think that's very true. And I think you touch on some interesting dynamics there where you're talking about something. I mean, if you really want to go into it, right, the way that we interact with other people, I think you could have a whole segment just about the decline of human interaction in the world right now, and road rage is a component of that. For me, I think there's an interesting cultural dynamic to it. A lot of people like to joke about Utah drivers being terrible. I will share my own experience in that I do actually think that Utah drivers are quite terrible. I grew up in Utah, went back to D.C. for grad school, and then moved to Boston to work. And we were talking about this before the show, but in Boston, Boston also doesn't have a great reputation for drivers.
Terrible drivers.
However, the one thing I will say is that going from Boston to Utah was a very fascinating culture shift, because in Boston, you don't have a lot of time to get over on the road. If you need to get to an on-ramp or an off-ramp or turn, there's just not a lot of space to do it. And what that means is that drivers, I found, were both really good at being offensive, getting over when they needed to be, but also defensive. If you see a car coming over, you let that car come over, because you know that you've had to do it. You know that they've got to get over. And so you have the balance. And I don't know what the road rage numbers are in Boston, but I didn't really see a lot of incidents.
That's because everyone in Boston has rage.
Because everyone in Boston has
Whether
rage.
you drive
That's
or not.
kind of true. However, in Utah, I feel like drivers are generally just offensive, like on the offense, right? Where if you have to get over on the freeway, no one's letting you in. No one's letting you in.
Right.
So if you have to get over and you cut in, or if you're not paying attention and you cut in, right? Also the use of horns, like you're honking your horn, all over the place.
Yeah, back east everybody
all
uses
over
their
the place.
horns.
And when I moved back here and was using my horn, my mom one day was like, "What are you doing? Stop honking your horn."
What if we see them at church?
I know, they're going to be so mad. And I was like, well, they did something stupid. I need to let them know.
I like that. I'm kind of a horn user too, but I've tried to lay off a little bit. Representative Paul Cutler from Centerville, he was a sponsor of the road rage amendments bill. He said, "I was surprised by how many road rage incidents we've seen and how often both Highway Patrol and local police have had to use the law." Now, Lieutenant Cameron Roden of the Utah Highway Patrol confirmed that by mid-December 2024, the new law added enhanced charges in 79 road rage
That's wild.
incidents. 79. That's in 6 months.
Wow.
The floor sponsor, Todd Weiler from Woods Cross, he said that he'd been surprised by the number of people who've called him about that law. You mentioned that. And he said, the goal is not to charge more people, but to send a clear message. We are starting to take this seriously. Road rage is something that can trigger impulsive decisions, sometimes with deadly consequences, which we've seen far too often here. Mm-hmm. He said, we want people to pause and ask themselves, is it really worth it? I've got to be honest with you. We've done a couple of segments on this over the last 6 months, especially when it was just coming online. And it has caused me to take stock of how I drive and how I react to people cutting me off.
Have you actually changed?
Yes, I think I have. And the worst is when I'm coming on I-15 and I go into that protected lane off by the Jazz practice arena, and you're going to like West Valley on 201.
Uh-huh.
Everyone has to merge in these 3 lanes coming from different places. And that is where I got cut off the most. And it has caused me to, I remember right after a show, I was driving home, and it caused me to like seriously take stock in how I was driving after I got cut off. And I like calmed myself, counted to 3, did the whole thing of trying to like lower my blood pressure. And it totally worked. And because of that, I like the education component of this bill. And I hope especially like teen drivers as they're coming up, really realize all the stuff that happens on the road, kind of take stock of your driving and to take this more seriously.
Yeah, well, I had someone tell me once, remember that, or think about the person in the other car, that maybe they're on there. Maybe there's a pregnant woman in the car who needs to get to the hospital. Maybe they're on their way to, something critical. Just let them have the moment. It's just not worth it. And that was actually really helpful to me.
Yep, I totally agree. It is just not worth it. And we're going to be talking. I think we need to have some of these representatives and senators and some more folks from the Highway Patrol come back on after we've hit our 1 year mark, and let's see how many. Let's see if people are getting better.
Work?
You don't want it to just keep going up and up and up and up, and I think that's like really terrifying. But I think right now we're in a good spot of if we can publicize this enough and talk to your neighbors and your kids about it and your spouse, hopefully that will help the situation. Coming up in the second hour of Inside Sources, we're going to be discussing special prosecutors' investigations into Hunter Biden, as well as special counsel Jack Smith's report on Donald Trump. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top local story. A man is now in custody after a woman was found dead in West Jordan yesterday. Police went to perform a welfare check on 39-year-old Autumn Mercado after she didn't show up for work because there has been a history of domestic violence. When they arrived, they found her dead at the bottom of a staircase in her house. 2 young children were also found there. They were alive. 47-year-old Carlos Mercado was arrested and could face charges for child abandonment and abuse of human remains. Lawmakers will work once again to help the Great Salt Lake in the general legislative session, which starts next week. Utah Department of Natural Resources Executive Director Joel Ferry says, we've made great progress in cutting our water use, but we still have to do more.
On average, if everyone were to reduce or to conserve 10%, on average, we can get to where we've moved the needle on Great Salt Lake. That's totally attainable, totally doable.
Ferry says lawmakers will mostly just be doing cleanup work or tweaks to laws that have already been passed. Our top national story from ABC News. The battle against those Southern California wildfires is going strong despite a new round of Santa Ana winds.
Despite the higher winds in some areas today, so far, so good. Flame activity is mostly non-existent on both the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire. Firefighters spent the last couple of days really reinforcing fire lines to prevent anything from sparking up again. No big new fires have ignited in the wind, but the wind is also nothing close to what it was last week.
The Dow ending the day up 221 points. Coming up, looks like a little bit warmer temperatures for the next couple of days. We'll check your forecast and check your drive as well. KSL News Time 2:02.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
You know that feeling? The weather starts getting colder, so you go down to check out the furnace and you look around and think, what am I even looking at? Because you don't know how these things work with all the lights and wires and pipey things. And then you think, I bet those technicians at Whipple went to school for this. Shouldn't they be here looking at my furnace? Whipple that away. Knowing what to look for on your furnace tune-up is my job. Make your problem my problem. Whipple Service Champions.
Visit whipplethataway.com for our current special offers.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with DayQuil VapoCool. It's DayQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let Mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is DayQuil VapoCool.
DayQuil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Morning, Paula.
Morning, Ron.
Another day in Adminville, am I right?
What are you working on? Oh!
You okay?
Your tabs. You have so many open.
Yeah, gotta order lunch for the big client meeting. With great responsibility comes tabs.
I can help. Close all those tabs and open just one, EasyCater.com. Online ordering from local restaurants, plus tools to save time, stay on budget, track expenses.
One tab to rule them all.
EasyCater, the smarter way to order food for work. Order now at EasyCater.com.
Hi, it's Kathy.
And Jason from Window World.
Doug and I have always been called the mom and pop Window World business.
Where folks are treated like family.
Well, now it's mom and kids.
And you'll still be treated like family.
Here's our welcome to the family special.
4 windows and a patio door, only $56.12.
That's right, folks. 4 windows and a patio door, only $56.12.
Find us online at windowworldutah.com.
Window World. Simply the best.
And as Doug always said, that's no baloney.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Ricky Meese.
All quiet along the Wasatch Front roadways, whether that be the freeways or the main secondaries. We did have an accident in Utah County eastbound SR 92 near the Alpine Loop. It really wasn't too much of a factor, and it's in the final cleanup stages. At the Utah Auto Expo, we have a vehicle for almost everything, and we certainly have a vehicle for your thing. Mountain America Expo Center, the 17th through the 20th. AutoExpoUtah.com for tickets. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Temperature is a little bit warmer, a couple degrees warmer for the next couple of days with no chance of showers, but that chance of showers returns on Friday, a 40% chance on Saturday. Right now, cloudy and 37 degrees. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
2 special reports have begun to be released, one from a special prosecutor investigating Hunter Biden, and the first part of another report from special counsel Jack Smith looking into Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Welcome back to Inside Sources. This is Erin Ryder here with Adam Gardner. Okay, we're going to start first with a discussion on Hunter Biden because these are interesting reports to me, and I want to get your opinion on some of this stuff. But before we do, let's just get a really brief recap of Special Prosecutor David Weiss's investigation into Hunter Biden.
The special counsel who investigated the president's son says he brought the charges against Hunter Biden because, quote, he broke the law. David Weiss says the unanimous jury who convicted Hunter Biden of gun charges agreed, and Biden himself pleaded guilty to tax violations. In his final report, Weiss takes particular issue with the president's statement that accompanied his pardon of his son. That statement called the prosecution of Hunter selective, unfair, and a miscarriage of justice. Weiss calls the president's words gratuitous and wrong.
Okay, so here's my question for you, Adam. Really, so this special prosecutor, David Weiss, is pushing back on the White House, and he's talking about baseless accusations coming from President Biden about the inquiry into Hunter. And he says politicians who attack the decisions of career prosecutors as politically motivated when they disagree with the outcome of a case undermine the public's confidence in our criminal justice system. So what do you think about the role of a special prosecutor right now? Do you think this, I mean, we're going to talk about Trump's report here in a minute. Do you think these reports matter anymore?
Yeah, I think they do because of they have the full force of law behind them, right? But we just saw President Biden pardon Hunter. So what I think you're getting at here is they're really important because they're actually doing the work that they're supposed to do. But you have, when Biden was investigated, he had a special prosecutor because he did a lot of the same things. He didn't do exactly the same things as Donald Trump with documents that he took and hid in his garage next to his Corvette. He bragged.
Right.
And Robert Hur, who investigated him, said, you know what, we interviewed him and we're not going to charge him because we think the jury's going to just think he's an old senile man that can't get his story straight and just made a mistake. And then it was kind of funny to watch the Biden administration be like, no, I'm totally competent, but not about that. You know, well, but I don't want to be charged. So they had to find this like middle ground of I'm not incompetent, but I also don't deserve to be charged. And so now you have you had the Trump Russiagate stuff.
Yeah.
And that turned out that was an actual report that they said we don't have enough to try you. And so that was totally different for Donald Trump. So that mattered, and that was important to get that kind of behind us. It didn't exonerate him for not making stupid mistakes, but it said you didn't do enough illegal. We're not gonna charge you. The Hunter Biden case was really interesting because he did break the laws. I mean, and not only that, but he went in to go take his computer that needed to be fixed and left it there. And after a while, the folks that work at the computer place see what's on Hunter Biden's laptop, and then they start turning it over to people, and it gets public, everything that's on there. And it is very clearly video evidence. I feel like Hunter Biden is like a 17-year-old boy with Snapchat who is just recording every stupid, illegal thing that they do. And you can brush off a 17-year-old as, he's just a kid. But Hunter Biden is a 50-year-old man, and he needs to grow up and stop doing cocaine and running drugs and using weapons at the same time. And so, but what Biden says in his pardon, and I think this is where Weiss is taking umbrage here. The charges in this case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed by the Department of Justice unraveled in the courtroom. And that was because the lawyers were kind of incompetent. And we got to watch all of that unfold. And so that's all the Hunter Biden stuff. We're now seeing Weiss's, like we just heard, it comes out. And Weiss calls the president's word gratuitous and wrong, which I appreciated.
Yeah, so, let's transition this for a second here to now talk about Special Counsel Jack Smith's report on Trump and the 2020 election, because I have some thoughts on this, and I think they're similar but a little bit different. So let's hear a brief recap of what was in this report on Trump.
The special counsel who investigated Donald Trump's role on January 6th and efforts to interfere in the 2020 election has issued a blistering report, sharply criticizing the president-elect's attacks on his investigation and suggesting that Trump's actions warranted prosecution, saying that no, quote, man in this country is so high that he is above the law.
Okay. Adam, I'm going to read to you the headline of this article from ABC News and tell you why I take issue with this particular report. The headline is this: Jack Smith, in final report, says voters saved Trump from being convicted in the January 6th case. To me, that is a wildly misleading headline because these reports don't actually convict anyone. They're evidence. They're evidence that comes out after an investigation into a particular action that can then be used in a lawsuit. Down in the article later, it says Smith's team concluded they could convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump committed multiple federal crimes when he attempted to overturn the election. So the report may indicate that Trump did this, and in some ways it's irrelevant because Trump won the presidency again. But to me, this is Jack Smith in some ways burning the house down and saying, I don't care. I'm going to go out there and tell everyone that Trump would have been convicted, even though that's not actually true.
And he's resigned, right? So he's not going to be here during Trump's term.
No.
So he's done. And your point about burning the house down is probably accurate because what does he have to lose? Nothing.
Right.
He wants to get everything out there. So I don't think it's inappropriate for him to say, me and my team, we had enough to convict. We had enough to convince a jury.
Yeah.
But the headline here is saying they saved him from being convicted as if the report itself is what convicted Donald Trump, which is not true.
Right.
I agree with everything you just said. I don't think it's right that we're going through all these trials and then you become the president of the United States and then we're going to put you back in prison right after you win, even though we know you're charged with all this stuff. It puts us in a really weird situation. And so obviously what happened in New York where they didn't sentence him, I think that was appropriate. But here we get into an interesting perspective, because when you incite your followers to that the Constitution is being overthrown and you need to go up to the Capitol and invade and stop the electoral votes from being counted, that's a problem. And I think that there needs to be some repercussions for this. And so I think it was appropriate to charge him on this, and whether you make it through the process, like, that's one thing, but certainly you need to be charged. And now all of this just kind of goes away.
It does. And I love that from an article on The Hill, the headline of this article, Trump's response says, Donald Trump slams, quote, lame brain prosecutor Jack Smith after report release, which is just such a Trump way to respond to that. Anyway, well, not much is going to happen, I think, at this point. So the report's out, and that's pretty much it. Moving on, coming up on Inside Sources next, speaking of the 2020 election, we're now going to talk about members of the January 6th Congressional Committee who are apparently seeking out some potential pardons before President Biden leaves office. Why? Well, we're going to discuss it next.
The best parts of KSL News Radio are so easy to use in the car. Catch the biggest stories affecting Utah's communities throughout the morning. If you miss a newscast, the next one is just a few minutes away. Plus, we have traffic updates every 10 minutes on the 9s like clockwork. We try to make it easy for your commute, mornings and afternoons. Rely on KSL News Radio.
Tay-Tay was a typical girl that loved pink, singing, and all kinds of animals. At 3 years old, she tumbled off a horse and received a traumatic brain injury. Her family prayed for a miracle, and when they realized their daughter would not survive, they made the decision to donate her organs. Because of her donation, 4 other people received her organs and tissue, allowing others to live. Go to donorconnect.life and read about what it takes to become a donor. Did you know many people think that they're too old and not in good enough health to be a donor? Anyone can be a donor. If you were told that it could save a life for someone close to you, or even a stranger, would you please donate? Finding out more on why you should become a donor is pretty easy. DonorConnect.life can walk you through the process and what it takes to simply sign up. Check yes to become a donor when you renew your driver's license. Give hope, heal life. DonorConnect.life.
The biggest hunting show in the West is back, along with Utah's top 200 hunting permits for just $5 each application. It's the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo in Salt Lake City, February 13th to 16th. Visit with hundreds of guides, outfitters, and exhibitors. Book a hunt, see the latest gear, and best of all, you can apply to hunt Utah's biggest bucks and bulls for just $5 each. It's all at the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo, produced in cooperation with the Utah Office of Tourism. Get tickets and details at huntexpo.com.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code SECONDFREE by January 26th. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer? Can we sleep cooler? Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting.
And now it's our lowest price of the season on our top-selling i8 smart bed. Your best savings, plus free home delivery with any base. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with Dayquil VapoCool. It's Dayquil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let Mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is Dayquil VapoCool.
Dayquil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Morning, Paula.
Morning, Ron.
Another day in Adminville, am I right?
What are you working on? Oh!
You okay?
Your tabs. You have so many open.
Yeah, gotta order lunch for the big client meeting. With great responsibility comes tabs.
I can help. Close all those tabs and open just one, easycater.com. Online ordering from local restaurants, plus tools to save time, stay on budget, track expenses.
One tab to rule them all.
EasyCater, the smarter way to order food for work. Order now at easycater.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
My name is Tom.
My name is Cindy.
We give to and volunteer with United Way at our community free health clinic.
We know our time and money are going to the right places.
We don't just wear the shirt.
We live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Jeff Kaplan. When I was a kid, my parents got me a subscription to Newsweek magazine. I would devour every page into the night. And to this day, I sit on my iPad looking for stories for my minute of news, flesh out our coverage, and I get to share the news with you.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Several outspoken critics of now President-elect Donald Trump have voiced concerns that the incoming president may go after them for their critiques. Among those are several current and former members of Congress who served on the January 6th committee. New reports say they're seeking pardons from President Biden before he leaves office. This is what we've been talking a little bit about this. Liz Cheney has been kind of in the news, and Benny Thompson, Democrat from Mississippi, he chaired the January 6th committee. He spoke to the White House counsel's office last month about the issue. Thompson noted that he hadn't talked directly with President Biden on the topic, but the veteran Mississippi Democrat said he'd accept a pardon if offered. I believe Donald Trump when he says he's going to inflict retribution on us. Thompson said Monday night, I believe that when he says my name and Liz Cheney and others, I believe him. So Liz Cheney was the Republican panel's vice chair, and she was actually just barely awarded recently the president's Citizens Medal, by the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Biden. So I don't actually see them getting pardons, but Biden's been very pardon happy.
You don't?
He's been giving pardons.
Why wouldn't he?
I just don't know. If I'm Liz Cheney, I almost don't know if I would be seeking a pardon.
Accepting one I think is different.
Yes, but okay, yes, that's an important distinction because you're saying I don't think that they'll actually accept the pardon, some of them, but Biden will definitely give them. He'll offer.
I think Biden would certainly give the pardons. But yes, whether or not they would accept it is different. Now, if you're Benny Thompson, maybe that makes sense because you're the Democrat who chaired the committee and you don't have a whole lot to lose. But if you're Liz Cheney, granted she's no longer in office, but as the Republican, do the Republicans want a pardon from Joe Biden against
and it was just
right?
Yeah, it was just a weird situation anyway because Liz Cheney was one of the most conservative members of the House conference. She really was. So she had something like a 95, 98% conservative action score. And so very popular conservative, except for like the impeachment issues, Donald Trump, and January 6th.
That's a big except.
January 6th was a big deal. So her own conference kicked her out of her leadership role. She was the number 3 Republican in the entire House of Representatives. She was kicked out, and they brought Elise Stefanik in there. They labeled Cheney a rhino. They brought Elise Stefanik in there, someone with like a 40% conservative score. And so she was much more liberal. She's from New York, from Western New York. And so it's just been it's been interesting to watch because a rhino isn't necessarily with the Trump folks a Republican in name only. It's anyone who disagrees with any of Trump's positions at any given time.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with conservative or liberal. They're just pegging Liz Cheney for this. So, and I will confess, I will receive hate mail and hate texts, and that's okay. I actually I co-hosted a fundraiser for Liz Cheney right after. I really like Liz Cheney. I liked her dad. I'm one of those middle of the road Republicans, so I'm very hated in my party a lot of times. And so I held a fundraiser for Liz Cheney. So she came to Salt Lake City, and we had a great event, and she was talking very open and free about some of the issues. And she had mentioned that her opponent at the time was a huge fan of hers. She goes, "Oh, she was with me all the time. She would call me all the time. She was super helpful." And then after this Trump stuff started happening and I was becoming unpopular in my state of Wyoming, she said she immediately went to the Trump administration, to the Trump campaign, and said, "I'll challenge her. Have the backing. I've known him forever. I can beat her." And immediately flipped this switch and then just became a totally different person. And it's interesting to watch in this atmosphere, especially this post-January 6th atmosphere of watching how different sides behave.
So I think this is interesting because one of the questions about this is what would these pardons do? Like, what would these pardons actually protect against? Because if, Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson aren't out there saying, "Oh yeah, we broke the law," all right? Typically you think about a pardon in we're just talking about Hunter Biden's pardon, right? You're thinking about it in the context of laws that have been broken and you are, getting a pardon for that. A presidential pardon in this case, what are they pardoning? What is the pardon being used for? I mean, these are presumptive pardons, but if there's no wrongdoing,
doesn't it kind of remind you of the Hunter Biden issue where Hunter Biden wasn't pardoned for X, Y, and Z. Hunter Biden was pardoned for all federal crimes he may have committed or participated in for an 11-year period of time and included 6 hours after it became public. So he could have committed crimes that day and been totally absolved because we have no precedents for this. And so we kind of now have the precedents for, you know what, you're going to be pardoned for anything that you may have done regarding January 6th. Even though they can't pinpoint a single thing they've done, what they're worried about is the Trump administration getting creative with the law of how can we punish these people.
Yeah, well, and I think that, it's interesting, too, that you have some people like Liz Cheney who are no longer in office because if Liz Cheney were still in office, Trump could pressure Mike Johnson to not give her leadership roles or not give her committee assignments or, punish her in a political context like that. But you can't really kick these folks out of office. They were elected by their constituents, not by Donald Trump.
And I got to ask you this. What happened with the January 6th stuff? I mean, they're accusing her of tampering with witnesses and throwing away evidence and all of these things. And so, do you want to investigate it? Sure, I don't care. But what's interesting is this is a total House process. It's not a Department of Justice process. And it seems to me, you know the law better than me, but wouldn't the House of Representatives have to actually take action and then refer it to the Department of Justice? Or can the Department of Justice just do whatever they want on their own?
Well, honestly, I look at it, stick with me here, but I think it's kind of similar to some of the Matt Gaetz stuff, where the ethics investigation, all of the investigation into Matt Gaetz's activities were from the perspective of the House Ethics Committee and his role as a member of the House. He's no longer in the House, so even though that report has been released, what comes of it, right? Like, especially if he didn't actually break the law. And Liz Cheney, this is a House process. What comes of this?
And Liz Cheney, she actually said, though in this article, those who have spoken to Cheney told us she's fully expecting Trump to come after her. But a spokesman for the former Congresswoman said in a statement, there is nothing to be pardoned for. So she's been out there saying, like, I think she'll come after me, but to your point, what can you pardon me for? I don't think I've done anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And everything that may have happened within the House. And so, like, what happens then? Representative Barry Loudermilk, Republican, that name just gets me, Republican from Georgia, the chair of the House Administration Subcommittee, led an investigation into the work of the January 6th Select Committee. And this was done totally by the Trump campaign pushing this. Released a report December 17th recommending that Cheney be investigated by the FBI over her role in the panel. That this thing was never going to get off the ground. They were never going to be totally serious about this thing. And so they were going to Trump wanted this to happen. And so whatever they needed to do to fit that narrative, they were going to do.
Yeah. Well, and there's also a question especially with the Republicans who were on the committee, who might be concerned about that, who are still in office. If you take the pardon, does that imply guilt? And that's, I think, an interesting question for some of these folks. You know, if you're a Democrat, maybe you just say, it's a Trump thing. We don't want to have anything to do with Trump. We're just going to take the pardon. But if you're a Republican and you accept a preemptive pardon from Biden, is there an implication that gets attached to that pardon, even if you've done nothing wrong?
Sure. I think there is an implication, but I would also say, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, but Trump, you could say Trump's crazy, so I'll accept the pardon. Sure, what do I care? And then just play it off as not a big deal. Like, can I deny a pardon? I don't know. So we're going to see what they do. We'll follow up when we have any more breaking news on that subject. But next on Inside Sources, a proposed amendment to the U.S. Constitution looks to limit the amount and kinds of finance involved in election campaigns. We're going to chat with someone involved to get their take after the break. Stay with us.
Good afternoon. It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top local story this hour. An Eagle Mountain teacher is facing 30 felony charges accused of sexually abusing 2 students in his classroom. Officials have just announced the suspect, Ricardo Prins, has left the country. He's gone to Brazil. Online records indicate Prins is a teacher at Rockwell Charter School in Eagle Mountain, but the school hasn't confirmed whether he was employed there. The Garfield County Commission is looking to rename a trail after Donald Trump. The county roadway is currently called the Burr Trail Scenic Backway. The proposed name change is the Donald J. Trump Presidential Burr Trail Highway. They're holding a meeting this afternoon to discuss, but the official change is contingent on a public hearing at the next commission meeting, January 27th. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. House has passed a bill banning transgender athletes from competing in women's sports at federally funded schools. 2 Democrats joined Republicans supporting the bill.
On this vote, the yeas are 218, the nays are 206. 1 voted present. The bill is passed. That objection, motion reconsider is laid upon the table.
The bill now moves to the Senate for a vote. Your money at this moment. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 221 points today. Coming up, a 0% chance of precipitation. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Our military faces a crisis. Recruitment down. Morale weak. Our leaders more focused on going woke than killing terrorists and defending America. President Trump nominated Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense to change things. Hegseth isn't an insider or a swamp dweller. He's a decorated veteran of the United States Army who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's exactly who we need leading the Department of Defense. Hegseth will ban woke nonsense from our armed forces, strengthen our military, and make our soldiers proud to serve. Call your United States Senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them stand with Trump. Confirm Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Again, call your senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth and make our military great again. Paid for by American Leadership PAC.
Your little one deserves a big welcome.
From before the baby bump to baby in your arms, Common Spirit Health OBGYN physicians and certified nurse midwives are here for the labor, the love, and every moment in between. We specialize in prenatal, pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum care to help you navigate this journey with confidence and joy. So when the big moment arrives, you can welcome baby with the warmest hello of all. Hello, human kindness. Mountain.commonspirit.org.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/radio and use code radio for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/radio and use code radio at checkout.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? Well, they're not hard to find when you go to ZipRecruiter. Every day, ZipRecruiter helps people who are actively looking for jobs like yours. So it's easy to find the right person fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Hi, it's Kathy.
And Jason from Window World.
Doug and I have always been called the mom and pop window world business.
Where folks are treated like family.
Well, now it's mom and kids.
And you'll still be treated like family.
Here's our welcome to the family special.
4 windows and a patio door, only $56.12.
That's right, folks. 4 windows and a patio door, only $56.12.
Call today, 801-281-8111.
Window World. Simply the best.
And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney. Traffic and weather together brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Ricky Meese.
Nice and quiet on the Valley freeways, good speeds and no problems there. Or on the main secondaries, Salt Lake City PD wrapping up a crash at 8th South and 9th West. Advanced Window Products, factory direct affordable windows. Call today, they're on their way. Financing available. Save now, pay later. AdvancedWindows.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL weather forecast, upper 30s through the rest of the afternoon. Same story tomorrow. Meantime, down to 22 overnight. Right now, 37 degrees. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Money in elections and politics is not necessarily a new topic, but it has been more on people's minds since the Citizen United ruling in 2010. There's a new effort now to pass a constitutional amendment on the national level that would add financial restrictions in campaigns and elections. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Adam Gardner had to step out, so you are here with me, Aaron Ryder. And we have a special guest in the studio with us today, Jeff Clements, CEO of American Promise. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Aaron. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. So tell us about this amendment. And this is a constitutional amendment. We're not just talking legislation here. So tell us about what this amendment would do, what the motivations behind it, et cetera.
Yeah, Aaron, this amendment, it's a constitutional amendment, absolutely right. And what it does, it's all about federalism, you know, and a really core part of American freedom and our government is the role of the states in our government. And what has happened, you mentioned the Citizens United case, that was 15 years ago now, and what's happened since then is both a nationalization of elections through concentrated money in super PACs and so forth, but also now even foreign money. Foreign governments are coming into American elections spending money. And so it needs a constitutional amendment because the Supreme Court has decided over many years that spending money is something Americans aren't allowed to decide for ourselves how to address in politics. And most Americans and most Utahns think that's a big mistake because what we have then is this nationalization of concentrated power in Washington, D.C., and even global money coming in. So the constitutional amendment returns the power to Utah and the states to decide for themselves. It doesn't actually regulate anything. It gives Utahns the right to decide how best to deal with the problem of money in politics.
So tell us, we're talking about Citizens United and the court. I think one of the questions with this is typically you would see campaign finance reform occur through Congress, right, through legislation. But this is a full-blown amendment to the United States Constitution. And you alluded to this a little bit, but I want to go into it more. Why is it so important to have a constitutional amendment as opposed to just trying to do this through legislation in Congress?
Well, if you like how money in politics is working today, we can leave it with Congress and Washington, D.C. to take from here. Most Americans aren't very happy with it. And so what the Constitution originally intended and what the First Amendment was all about is Americans governing ourselves. And for 200 years, we decided what the rules were for how money was used to influence elections. So Utah decided what to do, if anything, about the role of outside money or other forms of spending in elections for Utah. Other states did it for other states. Congress had a role in federal elections, but that was a role. It wasn't everything. And now with the Supreme Court's decisions, not just Citizens United, but really many, 2 or 3 decades of decisions deciding that the justices on the Supreme Court and a bunch of lawyers in Washington are going to decide, we have to have super PACs or we have to allow foreign spending in our elections. And it just doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It won't work because it's not how the Constitution was supposed to be. So if you want to fix a mistake that courts make, and they do make mistakes, where it's so important to the role of freedom and governing ourselves in this country, you need to amend the Constitution, because if the Supreme Court has decided that they decide how we need to regulate money in elections or not, then we're not allowed to pass a law. Let me give you one example. Foreign governments were spending money in the state of Maine, $100 million to influence ballot elections in Maine. Mainers, led by a Republican senator in Maine, Rick Bennett, got a law passed to say, no, we in Maine decide that foreign governments should not be spending money in our state elections. That was blocked by a federal judge in Portland saying the Supreme Court does not allow Maine to do this, and therefore there's an injunction and foreign governments can keep spending. So that's what we need to change, and that's why it needs an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, because we actually have to use our power as Americans and as people in our respective states to, when things require it, we need an amendment. That's how we got the Bill of Rights. It's how we got a bunch of other amendments that are pretty important, and 8 of those actually reversed or nullified Supreme Court decisions that Americans decided weren't working very well. So that's our opportunity today.
Interesting. So I, as I mentioned before we started, I have run for office myself, and I feel like my perspective on campaign finance is a little bit different than when I first ran. And the thing that has changed is that I appreciate the importance of fundraising as a barometer for the viability of your race. If you are running for office and you can't get anybody to donate to you at all, you can't get any money into your campaign, to me, it's a sign that you might be in the wrong race or you might be the wrong candidate at the wrong time. So I actually have an appreciation for the importance of fundraising. Also, if you're going to run for especially some of these larger races, you need that cash to just get your message out there. And it can be really difficult to get your message out there otherwise. One of the things I saw on your website was that the idea is to transition away from fundraising being such an important part of this and moving more towards kind of the social capital, I think I saw the phrase was. So I'm curious to know, that doesn't mean that I want foreign interference in our fundraising. That doesn't mean that I want, I think the super PACs and some of these groups are certainly problematic. But, what do you see or what are you hoping the role of fundraising and financing is going forward if we go through with this amendment?
Well, number one, good for you for running for office. More Americans should do it. It's democracy and Republican self-government in action. So, and there's no question, to make it work, you need money, and you need buying campaign signs or talking to people about what you're going to do, so people want to say, yeah, I'll back your campaign. That's all an important part of it. And the key, though, I think, is number one, at American Promise, we're not going to tell anybody what to do, or we're not going to tell Utah what the rules should be for Utah. So we don't have a position on what the perfect campaign finance law or election law or how best to keep money at the right level or the wrong level, whatever those ideas are. I have my own personal views, but those don't matter. What we want is Americans to be able to decide that. So you here in Utah, or you in your race here in Salt Lake City, if the rules are working for you, great. Don't change them. If you want to change them, you should be able to change them. I think most of the elected officials and candidates we talk to, and we have many, both supporting this and former, both federal and state and also local elected officials working on this cause around the country and in Utah. And what they say is, I know I have to raise money. That's part of the deal. I'd like to be able to do it from people who live and vote here. I'd like to be able to do it from constituents. Yeah. I don't want to have to go hat in hand to somewhere out of state, or I don't want to be blindsided because some super PAC of a foreign government decides they don't like what I'm doing and they want to take us out. And, I don't like spending 80% of my time raising money. I'd like to be able to actually govern and work with my colleagues. So it's all about balance, and it's all about who decides. Yeah. And at American Promise, we think Americans will get the balance right. You here in Salt Lake and in Utah will get the balance right if you're allowed to. And that's we have confidence in the American people ultimately, frankly, more than a bunch of lawyers in D.C. who are going to say, well, no, you got to have super PACs, you got to have foreign money. And if it takes 80% of your time to go talk to wealthy donors, then that's what you just got to do. So we think this amendment would allow much better options and ideas for Americans to go forward with.
Got it. So last question here. We've got about 30 seconds left. What's the path forward? Do you see this passing?
We sure do see it ultimately getting passed and ratified by the states like Utah. We're really glad to have Senate Majority Leader Kirk Collimore taking the lead on introducing this in the legislature, and in the House side, the Majority Leader Jefferson Moss. So we think Utah is very well positioned to go forward in the legislature with leadership. But, we listen, and, we've been glad to hear that Representative Jordan Tosher, the Rules Committee chair, has been working on the language. And we think that there's a lot of interest in this in Utah. We know there's about 80+% support for this. And we think Utah's got a real chance to lead America to a much better future with this constitutional amendment.
It's going to be exciting to watch and to see what happens there. Like I said, a constitutional amendment is not easy. It's a long road ahead, but we're so grateful for the work that you do and for your time coming to be with us today. So thank you for participating and being interviewed. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, in our final segment today on Inside Sources, TikTok faces a ban in 5 days, and the news has users flocking to another app, an app with even stronger ties to China, which questions whether this undermines the entire purpose of what's going on here. I'm a millennial, so is our producer. He's going to join me for a quick conversation coming up next.
See the high-flying dunks, show-stopping blocks, and crowd-silencing threes at Delta Center this season. With an action-packed schedule, it's easy to get to a Jazz game. Pick out an unmissable matchup, or just a tip-off time that works for you. It's time to put on your Jazz gear and head to the game. Come with a friend, a loved one, or as a group. See all available tickets and options at UtahJazz.com or call or text 801-355-DUNK.
Les Olson IT now provides building security solutions. Do you need physical access control for your facilities? Are you looking for video surveillance systems accessible in the palm of your hand? Les Olson IT has what you need, and their low-voltage network cabling specialists will install it and make sure it's working the way it should. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
Things are just better with a partner or a friend. And when it comes to losing weight, Soda Weight Loss makes it easier than ever to let go of the weight for good.
I'd been wanting to lose weight, and I tried on my own. I had been seeing things for soda, and so we talked to the nutritionist and loved every bit of it. I couldn't be happier, honestly, with the result.
Join with a partner and only pay for one. Imagine achieving all your weight loss goals together with your partner, and you only pay for one.
I've let go 50 pounds, and I don't have the cravings that I used to have.
I would definitely recommend soda. It's because it works. I even recommended it to my daughter, and she's on her journey now.
Just go and look at the almost 9,000 Google reviews about soda weight loss. Lose the weight without injections, without medications, without hunger. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now. 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-838-6161. That's 800-838-6161. 800-838-6161.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
All right, so here we are. We are talking about TikTok again. More and more, quote, TikTok refugees, I love this, hashtag TikTok refugees are flocking to another Chinese app, with many saying they would rather explicitly give their private data to China than allow the United States government to control what apps they can access. This feels like such an American thing to do. Welcome back to Inside Sources. In our final segment here, you are with me, Aaron Ryder, and our producer, Andy Cupp. We are both millennials. So we're going to have a very millennial discussion about what's going on with this new Chinese app. Andy, tell us a little bit about this app.
Okay, so it is called Red Note, and it's been referred to as the Chinese TikTok. It's not exactly the same. I've heard a lot of people say it's like a mixture of Pinterest, TikTok, and Instagram. But in the past week or so, couple days, it's become the #1 app downloaded on Apple's App Store and the Google Play Store. And that's a big deal for an app that, by the way, is fully in Mandarin. It is not in English. So all of these people that are joining this app, they're doing it because, oh, it's a fun place to share the community and to spread, videos and whatnot. But the terms and conditions, everything is in Mandarin. So unless you know Mandarin, it's probably not an app that you're really going to understand what you're doing with it, which is kind of the concerns. But one of the things with this app being in Mandarin, in the terms and conditions, supposedly you agree to give up all control of your data, whether it's the videos or what's on your phone. You explicitly give control. And since it is a legitimate Chinese app based in, I think, Shanghai, this is like the whole thing that the U.S. government was worried about with TikTok of like, oh, they have access to our data even though their servers are based in the United States. This takes out any question of whether or not there's an American safety connection. This is a straight up Chinese app made for Chinese citizens that we are kind of now using almost in a sense belligerently. I saw a lot of videos that popped up on my TikTok feed last night, and as listeners just may have heard, I do use TikTok. And one of the funny things that I kept seeing were users over and over and over that were like, oh, well, the U.S. government is afraid of the Chinese getting my data because of TikTok, so they're going to get rid of access to TikTok. Well, I don't care. So I'd rather just give my information and data directly to China as kind of a, thumb up at the U.S. government.
Let's talk about this for a second. I think this is really, really interesting. First of all, I found it hilarious. This morning I opened X and saw a post from Duolingo that said, oh, so now you're learning Mandarin, which just made me chuckle so much. But how much of this do you think is a little bit of a generational dynamic where, you and I are both millennials. We grew up in an environment where we had dial-up internet that then moved full-fledged kind of where we are now. And so for a lot of us, we're just sort of used to our data being out there anyway, particularly with Gen Z and younger folks. That's just the norm, right? You assume that Meta has all your data. You assume that the government has all your data. So do you care if it's just another entity that has your data?
No. Just straight up. I think that is the generational thing because I am so used. I remember, the chat rooms that we would go on as teenagers.
AOL chat rooms.
You're chatting with the most random strangers on the internet. Completely not safe. Or MySpace, where you're just putting out anything you want and there's no safety or protection. Anyone can see it. I think millennials and Gen Z and I don't know if Gen Alpha is technically in this old enough to use these things yet, but we're just used to this digital world where everyone already knows everything about me, so why do I care? I mean, I opt into biometric stuff for, Delta so I can check my bag easier just using my face because, well, I don't care. They already have my face. And I know people like my parents of the, Generation X, almost boomers, would be a little concerned about that of, well, I don't want them to have access to my face. And I'm like, they already do. They already do. You're just giving them permission to use it to benefit you. But in terms of this with the data on the apps, no, I haven't moved over to Red Note because I do have a little hesitation on that term and condition of, oh, you give complete access to a foreign entity to access stuff. Because, I do like my phone staying private, what's on my phone. But at the same time, technology already knows everything about me. They know me better than I know myself. That's how the algorithms can, a lot of how they work. So it doesn't concern me.
So I think this is really, really interesting because we're looking at an article from the New York Times that is talking about this Red Note app and the shift over to Red Note. And one of the things they talk about is that people love the community part of TikTok. You even mentioned that, Andy, right? It's a source of connection, entertainment, and information, particularly since the COVID-19 pandemic, which I think is a really interesting dynamic of this. And some of the folks that they've talked to, or at least that they mentioned in this article, they're talking about one user who said, "We are coming to the Chinese spies and begging them to let us stay here." And, I don't really care if I'm using a Chinese app at all. It's like a place for me to escape reality. And if it's making me feel good, I'm here for it. I just think that's so interesting. How do you think that COVID maybe shifted the dynamic a little bit, even more towards social media? It was already there, but did COVID have an impact? TikTok showed up right around the time that COVID showed up. Are we so dependent on social media now for our interpersonal connections that people are like, look, I just don't care. I feel good about it. I have a community there, and you're now going to take my community away from me? Fine, I'll find a way around this.
Yeah, no, before I used to be in journalism, and then I did marketing for several years, including social media marketing. And we attended a conference in late 2019 with the job I was at that was, TikTok. You guys should be on TikTok. And I refused to be on it, personally or professionally, until COVID hit. And then within a couple weeks of the beginning of March, I was suddenly on TikTok. And doing TikTok ads professionally and personally using it all the time. But I think it's a little different. I mean, for me, I need the physical actual interactions. So doing remote work, for instance, didn't work for me. It was very isolating and lonely. I personally needed the physical leave the house interactions. And so for me, it's not so much about I need this community on TikTok because I don't know any of these people. For me, it's more of the entertainment and educational factor. I've gone through and I've started to save all of my TikTok videos onto my phone, the ones that I've favorited and liked.
Just in case?
Just in case, yeah. So I have access to them because there are life hacks and tips for home construction. I own my home, and this gives me DIY advice all the time, like in recipes. I have celiac, and so I need to do gluten-free stuff. And I guess in that sense, there is a community because I do see people that are in similar situations to me that have learned something, and then I'm like, oh, they actually kind of know what they're doing. Let me learn from them. And I'm going to miss that aspect the most.
Well, what I'm very curious to see now is what happens. Does this influence the Supreme Court's decision at all? Does this influence what the Trump administration decides to do at all? We know that the Trump administration has asked for a stay with the Supreme Court to wait until Trump gets into office and kind of reevaluate this. If the whole concern of this is to protect national security and make sure that American citizens' data is not getting into the hands of the Chinese government. Again, how unbelievably American for Americans to say, don't tell me what to do, I'm going to give it to them anyway. Yep. I just find that so funny. It's going to be really interesting to see what the U.S. government and the U.S. Supreme Court decide to do in response to that. All right. Well, it's been a fun day. Thank you so much for being with us today on Inside Sources. Tomorrow, join Greg Skordas and Rusty Cannon from 1 to 3 p.m. as they continue coverage of election bills coming for Utah's legislative general session. Next up, Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. 36 in Salt Lake City, KSL's top story. The clock is ticking. We're just 5 days till a nationwide TikTok ban takes effect. KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera is live. He's been speaking with social media experts about what's next.
Whose livelihoods depend on TikTok. And so for some, it definitely could be devastating.
And there's still hope someone could step in to buy TikTok before the 19th. Reporting live, Eric Cabrera, KSL News Radio.
Thanks, Eric.